Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with founder and CEO of Radical Customer Experience, Kennan. She is the leader of a groundbreaking consulting firm that encourages brands to establish genuine connections with their customers by embracing strengths-based, trauma-informed, and inclusive marketing services. With a passion for empowering individuals and driving positive change, her mission is to help brands speak up, speak out, and foster diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in their customer interactions. As a certified trauma-informed professional, Kat brings a crucial perspective to her work, infusing every aspect of her business ventures with a deep understanding of the human experience. Enjoy this interview.
It's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Of course.
So I want to begin our conversation before we get into the radical customer experience and your history in what we've lived through for the last 3.5 years, going through a global pandemic. I'm curious, how did you get through that time period and how did it change you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing is that it gave me maybe the braveness to really start my own business or genuinely be full-time in it. I also had an opportunity to get a certification in being trauma-informed, which I'm now marrying with my marketing experience. And lastly, it just gave me perspective into the mental health crisis that we're going through globally.
So let me get to the exact essence of what you do for a living on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students. It's career day. Okay? And one of the kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that curious child?
I'm helping change the world.
Excellent. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Oh, my goodness. I think a writer.
So let's peel back the layers here. Where were you born and raised, and what were the seeds that were put into you to become a business owner and to have this desire to change the world?
Yes. I was born in Salina, Kansas, mostly raised just south of Des Moines, Iowa. But now I've been in New York City for about 25 years. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, I didn't know if you knew I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, so all of that's very familiar to me.
Yeah, I saw the 816, so.
Okay, right. So when did you make that choice? How old were you when you went to New York City?
22. Yeah,
okay.
So 21, 22, right after college.
So what was it scary? What kind of culture shock did you go through? What was that transition like?
Yeah, well, I've always had a one-liner, which is I moved to New York City with a backpack and a dream. But I think it wasn't so much culture shock. It was moving to a place where I felt like anything could happen. And it gave me a sense of optimism. So
talk to me about who heroes have been for you in your life, who've been inspirational.
Well, one of my biggest heroes was my mom. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2020. But in terms of being an entrepreneur and a business owner, especially later on in your career, that is something that she did. She was a nurse and then a nurse practitioner by trade. But when I was in college, she went back and got her bachelor's, then her master's, and then her doctorate of naturopathy, and then got her PhD in homeopathy and published a book. So, well after the age of 50, and ran her own complementary care business in a small town in Iowa, which she was amazing. So she showed me that it's never too late.
So, speaking of entrepreneur and businesses, what's been the most impressive American entrepreneurial story for you? What's been the one, the rise to the top, that's been the most impressive to you or inspiring?
I mean, I think as a brand example, I think about Patagonia all the time. And, how their founder really, he had a dream. He had a dream around sustainability. And, all of these years later, look at where they are. And he had a huge failure where there was a big lawsuit with his first outdoor brand. And yet he persevered and went on. And now Patagonia is the brand we know. I think I look towards more purpose-driven founders and stories than maybe some of the bigger names today.
So what's been the best advice that you've ever gotten?
Oh, best advice. Stand up to what you believe in. Don't take no for an answer. Believe what people do and not what they say. All of the above.
Yeah, for sure. So what's been your best success story? With all of these endeavors that you've been a part of, what's one that kind of hits the heartstrings? It's one of your favorites.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's certainly like what I'm doing now. So, the whole purpose behind Radical Customer Experience is really about mental health, although it might not seem like at surface level. So I share my own experiences with trauma and that I have PTSD. And I can help hundreds of people, maybe 1,000 over my lifetime, just by sharing my story and helping people and other survivors know that they're not alone, right? And that's awesome. But no one touches more people than brands or companies. And so if I can teach those companies how to market with empathy and compassion, then I can help millions or billions of people. So that's really how I look at it. And I'm so, so proud of that. And also that suddenly I have a software product I never would have imagined having. And, I'm just pushing it in order to really change the world, going back to that third grade definition.
And I think that's the one thing that was the positive outgrowth of the pandemic is that there has been such a focus on mental health, and marketing products and services with that in mind has been probably a pretty big boom for you, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's still slow. I think there are a lot of marketers and brands that appreciate it, but perhaps don't quite know how to implement it. But, I think that the biggest thing to keep in mind is that, essentially they're moving their customer relationships from transactional into connection. And ultimately, it helps people, right? It helps the world in terms of like where we are. But it also helps like future success of that company.
So what's the greatest thing about living in New York?
I suppose there's always something to do, but maybe the greatest thing is a little JOMO, joy of missing out when you have everything to do and you choose not to. But I really miss the hustle and bustle when I travel. Like, it's so nice to go somewhere quiet for a little while, and then I start missing, the sirens and and all the noise.
So do you ever make it back to Salina or Iowa, kind of the Midwest? Do you ever get back to it?
Yeah. So my dad now lives in Atlantic, Iowa, so straight shot north of KC. And I do get back. I have a 12 and 15-year-old too, so they always like to see their grandpa. We went back over the summer, but probably every couple of years.
So what's it like? Does it jolt your system, or is it just like, yeah, that's where you came from? You're getting back to the urban hustle. How does that work for you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I necessarily associate it with going back home. New York is my home. I've been here so long. And, my parents and now just my dad aren't in the town where I spent most of my childhood. So I don't quite have that connection. But, there is something really nice about reconnecting, with my dad or, other family members that feels very nice.
So of all of the things that you've done in your life, probably more professionally speaking, what are you the proudest of?
What I'm doing now, absolutely, without question. I've worked for a lot of purposeful brands and companies that were having real impact, but I've never worked anywhere or built anything that I truly believe could change the world.
You have a dream tonight. You run into, a much younger version, say senior high school version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life up to this point. What advice would you give your younger self?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a survivor, so, again, having experienced some multiple traumas, I don't like to look to the past, but, when I think about my younger self, I, just want to tell myself to keep going, because I very much recognize that there are people who have been through similar things as me who aren't here anymore. And I'm here, and I'm pretty freaking awesome. So that's what I would assure my younger self about, is that there's a way beyond. There's a place beyond all of it.
So the one thing about trauma, and, when I'll interview therapists about this, it's like there's always this healing. Do you ever get to a point where you feel like I've moved past it, I'm not completely over it, but you get to a plateau where you feel like you're there and you can build and go out kind of in an existential way?
Yeah, I think, a lot of people use the term healed. I use the term healing. I don't think you ever get over it. You certainly reach plateaus, but it's day to day. I've come from a place where it was hard for me to walk down the street, right? And I know what that, kind of panic and anxiety feels like. Not that way anymore. But you never quite know if you're going to watch something or listen to something, and you might have a flashback, whether that's more visual or, emotional, but that's okay. I know there's going to be days where, I might need to just nap, right? I just might need to recover. And, I've learned to be gentle with myself. I think the notion that trauma survivors get over it does a lot of damage. The word resilience gets bandied about, and I think it's really a harmful word that implies that you have to bounce back to this conservative norm, which really never existed in the first place.
So if you can meet one person on the planet right now that you find inspirational or that you look up to, who would that be? Who would you love to spend some time with?
I mean, maybe it's an obvious answer, but I'd probably say Brene Brown. In hindsight, I think the very first time I heard an interview with her started this journey, and that was so long ago. I didn't know it then, but yeah, I'd absolutely love to spend time there.
If you could go back in time in history, a time machine pulls up when we get off the phone, you can see one event in human history with your own eyes. Where are you going to go? What would you love to see?
I think, perhaps it's like some scientific revelations or revolutions of being formed. I don't think that I'm really scientifically or like math driven, but knowing some very famous scientists in time that have just changed fundamentally how we think about the universe. That I would like to experience, whether it's hanging out with Einstein or something else.
So, Kat, everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everybody around you, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm strong as hell. I think that I wear my heart on my sleeve. And I think that I'm a survivor.
So, Kat, if anyone out there wants to learn more about you, your business, anything about you and your world, reach out. Where's the best place to go?
Yeah, absolutely. You can hit my website at radicalcustomerexperience.com or hit me up on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Kat Kennan.
Excellent. Kat, thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck. Have a great holiday season.
Oh, thanks to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.